Backpacking Europe has become expensive, but having travelled myself to almost every country on the continent on a shoestring budget, I'm going to give you 6 travel hacks that have genuinely changed the game for how I travel. They're going to be about transport, which is one of the most expensive parts of the trip, so if you're interested in booking your own trip, watch along and see my hacks. Hack number 1, and for me this is the biggest game changer, it's to use Google Flights. And flights are often the most expensive part of the trip. So it doesn't matter if you're starting from Europe or coming from further afield, if you go onto Google Flights and click this Explore button here. So I'm going to use the example of Manchester, which is where I'm from. I'm going to put in a single one-way trip as it gives you the cheaper flight alternatives. And now it depends. So if you want a specific date, for example, a half-term holiday, then you can click specific dates here. For the purpose of this though, I'm going to click flexible and I'm going to click sometime in September. Right, so we're on Europe now and it's going to show you pretty much, well, it's going to show you every airport in Europe and how much it costs, the cheapest cost in September to fly from Manchester. I'm going to focus on Eastern Europe though, because I want to have some general idea of my location, and we can see it's cheapest to fly to Zagreb, Dubrovnik. We've got Podgorica in Montenegro coming up here as well, Tirana, Skopje. So all these prices are the lowest. So that's probably where we want to fly into. So if you're going for a week or 2 weeks, you can start seeing the cheapest airport to fly into and out of. Ideally, you'll fly to a location you want to spend some time in. However, if you're going in the summer months where the prices are increased, you might have to fly into an airport that's close, but not that actual location, and then get a bus over. Sometimes it can save you £100–200. For example, this summer, flying out of Tirana to Manchester cost about £250. Flying from Podgorica, which isn't that far away at all, it went down to 40. So we saved loads and loads of money on flights just through this feature, which shows the prices of the nearest airports you might not realize exist or are that cheap. So I really recommend you use this, and same for the way back for your back flight. If you do want to go to just one location, for example a city break in Europe, you can add round trip in the top left hand corner and it will show you all the prices for a September city break. For example, in Eastern Europe, we've got Bucharest for £110, Corfu for £100. So for me, that's the best way of seeing Europe on a budget. Hack number 2 is to message hostels directly and ask for a cheaper room. Now, this might seem quite a bizarre method when you can use Hostelworld, which has lowest price guarantee, or Booking.com. However, in quite a few hostels I've stayed in, the owners have said if you did book directly through Instagram, Facebook, or their email, they would give you about 10% off. And that's because Hostelworld and Booking.com, they charge 10% to use their service. So you pay a deposit and you pay in cash when you arrive. That deposit goes to Hostelworld, not the hostel. So therefore I'd recommend you emailing hostels. They prefer it as well because they get more money themselves, so there's nothing wrong with it at all, and I recommend you do that. I do use Hostelworld a lot of the time, but in some cases it can be much cheaper to message directly, especially if you're in a hostel for quite a number of days. On to hack number 3, and now this only works if you're based near Ryanair operating airports. For Manchester it works, for me London, but somewhere in Europe. You want to go on the Ryanair cheap flights website, so you want to type into Google Ryanair cheap flights, and then you click on this website here, and you put in your home airport or your base airport, and then click anywhere. And you can just scroll through and have a look at flight prices. Now, this will just give you the cheapest flight in the next 6 months. However, it gives you an idea of where the cheapest locations you can fly to with Ryanair. I guarantee you'll be able to find £15, £20, £25 one-way flights, which is super good for traveling in the off season. So many people ask me how I can afford to just go away to Poland for a few days. Well, that's because the flights are actually really cheap. It's cheaper for me to get to Gdansk in Poland than it is to Sheffield, for example. So I really recommend you do use this feature. It also gives you an opportunity to explore other places in Europe maybe you wouldn't have looked at before or known about, and you can also combine this with a backpacking trip. Maybe you start in a location you'd not heard of before, such as Gdansk, and you finish in Warsaw. So it gives you an opportunity to see the countries and see places maybe that wouldn't have been top on your backpacking list. Tip number 4, and trains in Europe are so expensive, so take the buses. They save sometimes about 50% of the cost. Use the websites Flixbus or Get by Bus. Get by Bus is super good because it gives an overview of all the bus companies and it's definitely reliable. I've used them probably about 100 times now and I've never had an issue. They book the bus for you and then send you the e-ticket, I believe. Sometimes to watch out for, you need the paper ticket, but just ask a hostel or a tour agency to print them off. But I 100% recommend Get by Bus, and it will also show all the listings throughout the day. You can pretty much get from anywhere in Europe to anywhere in Europe using Get by Bus. Definitely recommend, and it is so much cheaper than the trains usually. Hack number 6, and this is probably one of the biggest ones as well, is to travel to busy places in the off season and less busy places in the summer. So if you're a student, for example, or you've got your summer off, go to Eastern Europe where it's a little bit quieter, the prices are cheaper, and then go to the Parises, to the Western Europe side, the cities you want to see in the off season where it is much cheaper. In the summer it's busy, it's less enjoyable, everywhere's crowded, the hostel prices are so much higher, it's not worth spending that much money. Whereas you can have an equally good time in Eastern Europe where it's much quieter, the hostels are still more expensive than they would be in the off season, but they're still so much cheaper than in Western Europe. So be clever with where you go at what times. It's also worth saying in this, make sure you travel light. If you want to just pay the basic Ryanair fee, you can just take a backpack on with you. It's fine. Have a bum bag on you, on your front. That counts as a clothing item. I've never been stopped for that. So as long as you have a rucksack, a bum bag, wear as many clothes as you can on a flight if you're going to a cold destination. And I guarantee for a week you'll be able to get by on a rucksack. Make sure you also put a packing cube in your bag because it squidges this all down together. I've taken the Ryanair basic fare many times and I've never really been stopped for having a backpack that's just maybe slightly too big or wearing a bum bag. So make sure you travel light, be clever with how you fly and what times you fly, and you'll be saving lots and lots of money. So those are my 6 transport backpacking hacks that have been game changers for me and have allowed me to almost visit every country in Europe on a really tight budget. You got all of these for free, so please do subscribe. Practice with the websites and see if you can find cheap flights from your hometown. And I will see you in the next video.